more important one.
Priority.
All right, cool. All right. How you doing, Ricky?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
No, welcome. All right. So, I'll be honest, this is the first podcast of this type that I'm doing, because usually when I bring people on, I have like I guess you can say I have an agenda of like, all right, I want to learn more about like, their fight history, or we're going to be talking about like something controversial. But with you, I'm actually just very, very interested in what it is that you do for a job. And because you're a pilot, right? Mm-hmm. And you do like all this like land surveying, and I just thought that was really, really cool. You gave me like a 5-second synopsis of it last time we talked about it, and like blew my mind. I was like, I didn't even know that was a job, and I feel like there's a lot of people who probably don't know that that is a job, and I think it'd be very cool to give it some exposure.
Very cool, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I gave you the 2-second or the 2-minute snippet of it, and it was enough to pique your interest. But yeah, I mean, big picture, I work for NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, as part of the Department of Commerce, and we do. I work with the Aircraft Operations Center, so we have 9 aircraft doing all sorts of different research, scientific missions, and they vary according to the aircraft, but there's all sorts of different projects we do. The most famous one, or the more notable one, is the Hurricane Hunter mission. So we're
Hurricane Hunter?
Flying, we have 2 planes that fly into hurricanes, and then I fly the jet that flies kind of over and around the hurricane as well. So that's a pretty high profile mission. We also have planes that fly after the hurricane hits and gathers damage information. We have planes that fly snow surveys, marine mammal surveys, whale surveys, air chemistry, all sorts of different things. So it's really the big gist of it is that we fly aircraft to gather data that's useful to the protection or preservation of either natural resources or human life, human property, and all that.
All right. So we got to start on the hurricanes, because the amount of testicular fortitude that requires, I imagine, is tremendous.
Yeah, so we have 2 different aircraft types that do that mission primarily. One is the P3. It's like a Navy 4-engine propeller aircraft that's built kind of like a tank. And they're the ones that fly into the hurricane down low. They're the ones that are flying through the worst of it. I'm flying
through the eye wall.
Yeah, exactly.
All the lightning, the 150 mile per hour winds.
Exactly. Those are the guys that are doing that.
Jesus Christ.
So I'm flying the jet, which is more so the high altitude reconnaissance. So we're flying these patterns around and sometimes over the middle, but basically sampling the whole environment, the synoptic environment around the storm that's influencing where it's going to go or what's pushing it certain directions. So it's a very different environment up there, and it's
so you're above the hurricane?
We're flying above the worst of it, yeah. But some of these storms are huge, so you're still in the clouds, you're still in the soup, you're still in turbulence, lightning. Some of the convective activity spills up to we're in the 40 to 45,000 foot range, but definitely a lot different from what the P3 is flying through down low. Yeah.
So, and this is what like the Weather Channel gets all their like footage from, all their like all their information they use to predict storms from. Is that from like guys like you?
The data we collect is pretty important for updating the warnings, the watches, the track forecast, as well as, a lot of the data we collect is for improving the hurricane forecast models, and then also just general research, like how do these storms...
Just letting us know how bad we're about to get fucked up.
Or if, maybe you're in the clear path, like all of a sudden we get data and it's like, oh shit, it's gonna take a major right turn. So then, like, everybody in Miami's good now, but people further up the coast better watch out.
Jacksonville, you're about to get messed up.
Yeah, watch out, Jacksonville. Yeah.
So when the hurricane's actually coming in, there's you guys are sending in planes nonstop over, like, in and out of it all the time, 24/7.
Depends on the storm, but yeah, on a 24/7 operations, we typically fly 2 shifts, so the flights are like 8 hours long, and one group will fly in the night and the next group will fly in the day, and it's kind of around the clock stuff going on.
How dangerous is the job? Is it as dangerous as what I have in my mind, or is it actually relatively safe? That just sounds dangerous. Because
I mean, basically both, I guess. There's not that many other outfits that are doing the type of flying we do. Mm-hmm. It's definitely out of the ordinary compared to your normal commercial flight. Yeah. Especially with the P3s, they're flying in the worst of it. Yeah. But I mean, we've been doing it for a long time, and we have a lot of safety procedures in place and risk management, and I'd say that we do it to a very safe level and a very standard level as well. So,
I mean, you're here, you're still alive, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's proof that it works.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Crazy. I mean, has there ever been a plane that got down during a hurricane, like a P3 or something?
No, we've never lost a plane. We've had a lot of interesting situations, but we've never lost an aircraft.
Interesting. How?
Well, it's been going on for a long time. We used to have a few guys that worked with us that have been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years, and you can imagine that things progress a lot in 40 or 50 years, but there's been one of the more notable one was one of the P3 lost a few of the engines. Like the engines were giving fire indication, and they had to shut them down, or they were shutting down automatically, and then they're low in a storm and losing thrust, so they're
in the middle of an eye wall.
In the middle of a storm, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So that was because they're flying so low that there's so much salt getting kicked up from the storm that the engines basically flamed out.
Oh.
So they were able to eventually get them restarted and start climbing away, but there was definitely a moment for that crew. I mean, this is quite a while ago, but there's a moment there where
they discovered God.
Yeah, they're minutes away from being in the water and that kind of storm environment. But
what do you do in that situation? Like, if, say, God forbid, the worst thing happens and the engines don't get restarted, like, are you just screwed?
Oh man, so we have all sorts of safety equipment aboard, and it's supposed to give you a fighting shot,
It's a tank, so I imagine it's hard to break in.
Yeah, ideally you would make a water landing, or a ditch on the water, and the plane is still intact, and you can evacuate somewhat orderly with life rafts and life jackets and signaling equipment and all that, and at least have a fighting shot. The second part of that is, well, who's going to go out there and rescue you? If you're in the middle of a Category 4, Category 5 storm. I mean, a lot of the Coast Guard
doesn't even go out. They're locked up.
They're going to wait until the storm passes, so you might be out there for a while.
For like 2-3 days. Just 20-foot waves slamming onto your left and right.
Yeah, recipe for seasickness for sure.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, you said that nothing catastrophic has happened yet, right?
Correct, yeah.
Oh man. Thank God for those engineers. So you've seen like hurricanes, like not up front, like from the sky looking down then. Mm-hmm. That must be awe-inspiring.
Yeah, there's definitely moments where, we fly to time the data being delivered so they can update the models. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we'll fly like during sunsets, and sunset over the middle of the ocean somewhere, and you can see the characteristics of the storm, and you can see these outer feeder bands sweep in, and the middle activity is out in the distance, and just it's pretty cool. Pretty cool moment where you're just like, man, I'm right here right now, and we're doing science, and it's just kind of cool,
It's me. I'm just in a hurricane. I'm in an airplane that's a hurricane right down there.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's really cool too. We fly with a lot of scientists in the back that are meteorologists, and they've been studying these things for their whole career, so they get super jazzed up about different things. We drop these instruments out of the back of the plane that transfer data to the plane, and they're reading it on a graph. They're reading the data, like what is the temperature, wind speed, humidity,
air pressure,
and they can read the graph and be like, oh man, it's super dry here. Like this is gonna hold back the storm, and they're interpreting it and,
Live.
Yeah, real time, and it's really cool to see them
That's
interpret
impressive.
that stuff. Yeah.
You just fly the planes though, right? You don't actually read the graphs, or do you know how to read the graphs?
I can read the graphs, but not
like them.
Yeah, not like that. I'm like, ooh, look at the blue line.
Yeah.
That's the red line. Why is there such a sharp jag in that one? Or I can kind of interpret it, but they take it to a whole nother level. They're.
So is it true then that hurricanes are getting stronger year by year, or is that like a climate change myth?
I mean,
not to go controversial.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. That's a kind of a loaded question. I mean, there's a lot influencing it, and we put out our annual hurricane forecast. This is supposed to be a forecast, more active year than normal. It's a La Nina pattern, so there's other weather patterns like in the Pacific that can influence the strength of the hurricane season. But I mean, I think there's a potential for things to spool up at any time. It's unpredictable. It's weather. It's nature, and you give it the right ingredients, and things can happen pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, we've only been monitoring the weather for less than 50 years, so we have no amount of data when you actually really look at it. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of historical data, but with the amount that we have now, it doesn't go back that far as the amount of information that we're able to assimilate into these models and the number of models that we have. And it's pretty cool. They have this, it's called spaghetti tracks. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No.
So if you go to a website, it's called Spaghetti Models, and it's science. I promise.
Right now, what popped in my mind was not scientific at all.
It's 100% science, but
Spaghetti models,
and it's all of the different. For this specific site, it's all the different hurricane models, and the model is basically trying to predict the future. Where is the storm going to go, and how strong is it going to be at certain times? So there's, dozens of different models, and on this website, they put them all on stack on top of each other. So you'll see a map with lines that are going all these different ways, or lines that are all going the same way, and it looks like spaghetti if you kind of squint your eyes and look at it. So. It's really cool to see the number of different models, and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and that's oftentimes what the data we're collecting out there in the storms is going to update the models and feed the models and try and make them more accurate predictors of the future, basically.
Gotcha. How accurate have we been in our predictions? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes eerily accurate, and sometimes it's, you still get caught by surprise. Hurricane Dorian, I think that was 3 years ago, was the Cat 5 that hovered over the Bahamas.
Yeah.
It was super out of character for a hurricane. It just sat over the Bahamas for days.
I remember that. That was the one that really messed up Haiti, right?
The Bahamas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty catastrophic. I was actually flying one of our King airplanes after that storm passed. We have camera equipment on that King Air, and we were flying and taking imagery of all of these damaged areas so that the Coast Guard and other sorts of emergency response personnel could use that data and see where the worst damage was, what are the status of the roads or the airports, can we get
lines, down trees,
down trees, can we get people in there? Are there people that are
stuck on rooftops?
Exactly.
Saving lives.
Yeah. So we're getting some sort of helpful information for the responders to go out there for that mission. But I mean, to your question, it's the models are trying to predict the future. So sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, chaos theory dictates that we're going to get up at least 33% of all of our predictions completely off, and the next 33% will be kind of on, and then the final 33 will be maybe this will happen.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's pretty close to. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how close we are or how spot on we are all the time, but
I mean, I'm actually reading a book right now about forecasting and just advanced predictive models and chaos theory, and it's just the amount of things that can go into changing everything, which is like butterfly effects, is just damn near infinite. So to try to predict something is a fool's errand, but it's not going to stop us from trying to do it, and we're going to get progressively better at it. just not at rates that we're gonna find acceptable. You know, it's really weird. Like we're getting ready to predict things, to create predictive models for our great grandkids. So like we're not even gonna see the fruits of our labor, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But but that's also to say that we're standing on the shoulders of our great grandfathers who set us up so that we can do the work now. So it's a weird process.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. Honestly, is I mean there's errors and we're gonna make mistakes, but I mean we're still gonna try and we're gonna get better at it, like you said. So
I mean that's science.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. So like when you're like surveying like these hurricane struck areas, do you sometimes see like the area before the hurricane hits and then you see it after it hits?
Yeah, 100%. So that's one of our king airs. We have 2 king airs. They're a smaller twin engine aircraft. And one of them flies a coastal mapping mission / emergency response mission. So you'll fly and we get pre-event imagery and post-event imagery. So you'll fly all the coastline of the Gulf and East Coast before hurricane season, April, May timeframe. And certain ports of interest, you'll kind of focus on those even more and fly multiple lines over them. But you get a sense, you see it all before the season, and then during the season, you if there's an event, you'll get post-event imagery in an area where there's damage, and yeah, you fly over the same spot, and you're like, dang, like it's night and day, you know, like especially Louisiana got hit pretty hard. I think it was 2 years ago, and I fly over some of these areas where there was beach houses and
now it's just rubble.
And like all you see literally is like the foundation of the house, like the concrete pad is the only thing that's left, and there's just trash everywhere and rubble and rubbish and sand and water, and pretty eye-opening. Even we're flying on that one at 1,000 feet.
Oh, that's really low.
It's pretty low, and we fly missions that are lower than that, but you can still see. You know, you can still see all the damage. You can still see people picking up. If the storm has passed, they're already trying to rebuild, or you know, bulldozers going, if not, or people evacuating or coming back, just depending on what the timing is. But that's pretty eye-opening too, especially when we were in the Bahamas. It was like, I mean, it was total destruction, just a whole town leveled, you know, and that was pretty. I don't know, it's kind of like somber mood a little bit, you know. You're trying to do something to help, but really there's so much damage there. It's kind of
yeah, and they still haven't recovered. There's parts of Puerto Rico that haven't recovered from, I think it was Irene or
yeah, I think Irene was a big one there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's a good point too. It takes years. It might not ever come back, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes businesses just like cut their losses and, you know, leave an old hotel there. Just we're not going to rebuild it. It's too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a huge economy. Like the government only gives them so much money, but and they can, like, they only just like opened up, but like they're still like really like a couple of my friends went there recently, and they said like they drove to like the towns like outside of San Juan, and there's still like houses that don't have roofs, and people are still living in them. And I'm like, they just have like tarps on top.
Yeah, tarp land. Yeah, blue, and you can see that flying in too. It's just blue tarps all over.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Years past, yeah.
Do you still go like, oh my god, when you fly over these things, or are you like, I've seen this like 1,000 times already?
I don't know. I really like flying a lot, and I think I'm always looking out the window, see what I can see normally, or things that aren't normal. And I don't know. It's always like impactful. I think whether it's exciting or sombering, it's just like, whoa, you know, such a unique perspective, and such a cool perspective to see, like the lay of the land or what's going on, or wildlife, nature, humanity. I mean, all that stuff. I love flying. I love seeing that perspective, you know.
I can get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
Like I've done skydiving a few times, and like each time I'm just like, man, like just before the jump, you just get that panoramic view of like everything around you right during the free fall. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like I am insignificant. I am tiny in this universe.
Where did you go skydiving? I've never been.
That's so the first time I went was upstate New York, and I just saw like the entire like Catskill Appalachian Mountain train. It was amazing from like 100 miles away. I saw like the New York City skyline. I was like, whoa,
That's cool.
It was like a perfectly just whether you jump or not, just being able to see that panoramic view is just it's breathtaking, you know. And then I went last year actually over in Lakeland.
Okay.
So it was different from like seeing like a bunch of mountains to seeing like the flattest place on the planet Earth, which is Florida.
Yeah.
And then just seeing like all the lakes around and just seeing like the coastline. It was freaking beautiful, man.
Dang.
Yeah.
So that's where our aircraft are in Lakeland. That's the airport we base out of, I guess.
Okay.
I didn't know they did skydiving stuff there.
Oh yeah.
Dang.
A lot of fun. I'm actually surprised you haven't gone skydiving. I guess to you it's just you're always flying, so.
Yeah, there's a few pilots that it's like, no, I don't jump out of planes. I fly and land them. You know, if I'm jumping out of a plane, that's a bad idea.
Yeah,
or bad day.
That plane better be on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Versus I just do it for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so besides hurricanes, so you do like other things too as well. Like you were telling me about this your last trip to Alaska, and you were surveying the land. Like what was going on?
Yeah.
There? If you're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, that was. I mean, all of our projects none of them are
Classified.
None of them are classified. They're all we're public use aircraft, and data is available and everything. But Alaska was an epic trip, and I'm still kind of in awe. We were up there. We were flying a project. It's called Snow Survey, and this is a big annual project. And we fly smaller aircraft. And again, the King Air was the one I was flying up there. Mm-hmm. We fly with a sensor in the back that is a passive sensor. It just senses what's in coming out of the ground, and it can detect how much moisture is in the soil or in the snow and ice on top of the soil. So it's all about finding how much water is out there in the snow and how is that going to impact like the drinking water availability, like what's filling up the reservoirs, but then also like when all that snow and ice melts, where is it going to flood? So are there any villages or towns or cities that are going to be in danger? And the project we fly is the Northeast, the Midwest, the Rockies, and California, and then also in Alaska. And so there's a lot of different people that are impacted by spring flooding in those areas. But we were in Alaska. We were based out of Anchorage and Fairbanks, and we flew like an awesome cross section of all the mountain ranges, and like north of the mountain ranges, south, east, west. It was just incredible to see Alaska like that. It's just so much nature, so few roads and buildings and all that, and kind of like an out of this earth landscape, some of these places
versus seeing all of that.
Yeah, you're like, wow. I'm in an aircraft, and you can see panoramic all the way around you, and I don't see anybody. Like there's no buildings, nothing, just this crazy mountain landscape. And it's a really cool project. For the sensors to get accurate data, we have to fly at 500 feet. Mm-hmm. Which is pretty low. I mean, it's low enough to like wave to people and see if they wave back, and they're like looking at you.
Do they ever wave back?
Oh yeah. Oh, I wave to people all the time.
That's so cool.
In the other plane, it was unpressurized, the Twin Otters, so I'd roll down the window and wave out the window, like flying by schools or campers or hikers and stuff.
Like waving at little kids, inspiring them to be
exactly
pilots and scientists in the future.
Yeah, exactly. But in the King Air, it's pressurized, so we can't roll down the window, so I'll wing wag. I'll go left and right.
You make the plane wave.
Exactly.
That's cool.
So yeah, I mean, one of these. So we're flying down low on these lines, and it's in the terrain, and I mean, there's high terrain all around you, and you have to navigate your way through these canyons and choose the turns correctly and stay on speed. But one of these lines we came over. We're coming over a ridge line, and it was like a saddle in the ridge. where some snowmobilers, like 4 or 5 of them, were able to get up to the top of this mountain, and we like came over the ridge, had no idea they were there.
They took a snowmobile up a mountain?
Yeah, they found like a nice way up, but you know,
that's the most Alaskan thing I've ever heard in my life.
Gave them a big wing wag, and they're all waving back, and they like dropped off the other side of the mountain. And
oh, that's so cool.
It was kind of a unique experience out in the middle of nowhere, you know.
So you're like flying like through canyons and navigating around the mountains?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's, as far as the projects we do, like that is the one where you are like practicing all of your pilot skills, flying in hand, and looking out the window, visual terrain following, and it's the most fun. Is from a pilot perspective, it is like the most challenging, the most rewarding, and
I mean, one false move, you're going to the side of a mountain.
You have to be in the zone. Yeah, you have to be totally present and totally aware, and know what you're doing. Yeah, and watching everything. You know, like looking outside, watching your engines, your other instruments, make sure that nothing is malfunction on the plane or with the science equipment, and it's just yeah. And then it's incredible. You fly this line down low, and then you climb up and fly to the next one, and then rinse and repeat.
Ricky, this is your job. You're not supposed to enjoy this. You're supposed to be miserable. You're not supposed to be smiling as you talk about your work.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a good project. It's a newer plane, so we used to have a different plane that flew that mission in Alaska. So this was kind of like the first big season for that plane, and I think it worked out great, and hopefully, fingers crossed, get to go back next year, you know.
That's super sick. So like you're just gathering all this data information, just sending back to scientists who make calculations, and then they go around saving people's lives. It's crazy. You're saving lives by flying an airplane.
Trying to. We also we do other ones. So we do seal surveys, turtle surveys, also whale surveys.
Whale surveys.
So we'll try and save not only human lives but whale lives,
aquatic lives too.
Yeah.
So is that exactly how it sounds? You're just following like pods of like whales and other marine life around and just monitoring them?
I mean, there's a couple different types. So some of them are interested in all forms of marine life, but some of them are pretty targeted. So one of the more long-standing ones we've been doing is on the endangered species of whale called the northeast right whale. And there are a couple different populations, but the population that we're really been focused on is in the northeast U.S. So their calving ground is off the coast of Georgia, and then their summer feeding grounds are up near Cape Cod, and then also in the Gulf of St. Lawrence in Canada. So we're kind of flying the Twin Otter, which is a small aircraft.
That's the non-pressurized one.
That's the non-pressurized one, yeah. And it's much slower. It can fly comfortably, a lot lower, and then also like land shorter and take off shorter. But it's really well suited for the whale mission because you're flying out somewhat strategically, trying to find the populations of this northeast right whale and see where there are, see how many there are, and then also like identify certain individuals. So it's basically like a recon mission where you're trying to take photos of the whales, of as many whales as you can.
That is so cool.
So we'll fly out, and you know, like if there's a whale, we have to break off and do circles around it. And if this is the sun, I mean, we were talking about lighting in here with cameras and everything. So same thing, we're trying to take photos of a whale from a plane. This would be a bad angle because there's the glare just right off of it, and we'd be like, who is that? What whale is that? But come around and put the plane in between the whale and the sun, and then you got a nice shot of the whale, and they send it back to their team of scientists on the ground, and they can actually identify individual whales based on like the patterns on their head of the patterns of, they call them callosities, which is like an organism that colonizes on their heads. It's not a harmful relationship, but it does create like these patterns on their head where they can see like, oh yeah, that's 41003, aka Smokey. That, you know,
Smokey. Oh, they named it.
They name them, yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually.
It's pretty funny.
So you've seen like whales. Well, I don't know about up close, but so you've seen actual whales then.
Oh yeah. lots of whales, lots of sea life. I've seen, we fly that mission quite a bit, so I've spent a lot of time on it, but I've seen them, baby whales, dying whales, whales feeding, pooping, whales being saved, whales being caught in nets.
How big is a whale shit?
It's more like a cloud. It's just like a underwater, like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you're like, why is it so green and brown right there, Tim? He's like, well,
it's defecating.
Yeah. So that's a really cool mission, and it's been going on for a long time. And it's kind of a tough one because they are an endangered species, and sometimes the news isn't so great. It's,
Have you guys been able to make any positive impacts towards saving or helping them?
Yeah, it's tough because sometimes you don't see them, and it's a dwindling population, and it's on the brink of being too small to be genetically diverse enough to be there for the long run.
Oh, shit.
But some of the good news stories are, anytime you see these mom calf pairs, seeing a new calf.
That's really cool.
The next generation, the scientists are ecstatic in the back, and it's like a high five moment. Yeah. And you get a few of those, or maybe if you're on the project long enough during the winter, you get to see that 5 or 7 times. Other good news was up in Canada, they were pretty responsive in changing their fishing regulations. So a lot of these whales are getting caught in nets and also getting hit by ships if the ships are transiting these high density areas. So the Canadian government was actually pretty responsive in changing the fishing regulations or fishing areas and changing the paths of major shipping channels.
Just to help save the whales.
Yeah, to hopefully, separate them a little bit. Because it was such a, I was up there one summer and there was 8 or 9 dead right whales, and we were, it was every time we were going out, we were finding a new one that was entangled in these nets. And
so what happens when you find one entangled? Do you send a team to go down there and untangle it?
Yeah, a disentanglement team. Yeah, you're right. You're all over it. So there's different.
That's gotta be scary because those whales are huge.
Yeah, they're huge, and they're scared. They're angry. We see a lot of whales, and they're kind of calm feeding. But if they're entangled, it's
they're panicking.
You're in panic mode, and you're like, wow, that is a lot of water they're moving, just high fluking, tails slapping, and it's just moving, and there's white water and everything, and it's pretty dramatic. And they're moving too. They get tired as well, but when they get in the flight mode, they're moving, and even in a plane,
adrenaline's pumping.
Yeah, even in a plane, I'm circling them, and you're like, wow, this guy's moving north at pretty fast pace. But the idea is we can locate them, and then a small boat team can get on scene, and then we can guide them and give them some information. Here's where the whale is. It's moving northbound. It looks like the net is stuck on its
left dorsal fin.
Exactly. It's a tail or it's a pectoral fin. Maybe if you can cut it. So they have this boat which has a bow station with a guy. They have this boat with a bow station where a guy can lean over, and there's a railing, and he has basically an implement that can pull and cut the net off.
Okay.
So it's pretty challenging.
Yeah, because I imagine you don't want to just go right up to a 10-ton creature and just start touching it with your hands.
Yeah,
it will kill you.
Yeah, and we actually saw someone get killed by a whale the one summer, which is pretty crazy. But this guy, this gentleman, his name is escaping me right now, but his dying acts were saving a whale from an entanglement. So he pulled up to the whale, and he was trying to cut the net off, and the whale did a high fluke with his tail, and the tail just came on top of him, and he was kind of hit to the deck and unconscious immediately. Never revived to conscious state after that, and there was kind of a follow-on to try and get a Coast Guard boat or get them to meet a Coast Guard boat. So we did get medical attention for him, but unfortunately it was too late.
And you get hit by a 5-ton mammal that's in panic mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was pretty shocking moment, but good news is, I mean, he was doing what he loves, and he was super passionate about it. He had been doing this for, I think, decades, and we actually did find the whale, and he did save the whale.
That's good, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of a common theme with a lot of those scientists we work with, that they're, like
when Steve Irwin died to a stingray.
Yeah. I mean, they're super passionate about it, and it's like what they want to do, and their whole life revolves around this passion, this mission that they have. So for that gentleman, I think he wouldn't have had it any other way,
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's one of the missions we do. There's also turtle missions as well, and seal missions, which are kind of funny. We'll go out.
Seal missions, not seal missions.
Exactly. Yeah. Like harbor seals. They're all pretty similar in that, from a pilot perspective, you're trying to find these animals and get close enough so that scientists can either count them or take photos of them, and kind of takes an art from a pilot perspective to be good at that.
You're doing photography from 1,000 feet in the air.
Exactly. Yeah, you're setting up the photographer outside of a certain window and with a certain angle and all that stuff. So it's pretty satisfying, rewarding from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And are these? Do you guys send shots to like National Geographic and stuff?
Not so much. I mean, I think there has been some cases in the past where, like, Smithsonian's come out and we have media board, or there was another project in California where they were collecting IMAX grade video for I don't know if it was Nat Geo or somebody else, but most of the photo stuff it's kind of like for immediate use, like for scientific use versus like theater use or movies, cinema, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to get all those National Geographic magazines as a kid, and I always loved just seeing, because I've always wondered, like, man, how do they get people into Antarctica of all places to get all these pictures of penguins and all these mountains? And I'm like, okay, now it all makes sense now.
Yeah.
They hire people who are able to fly into hurricanes and track down whales.
Yeah, I mean, we routinely fly in places where it's like, wow, this is probably the only way to get this perspective is from a plane, or mm-hmm. from this particular plane that's well suited for this flight profile, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Are you guys international?
We do some international stuff. So mm-hmm. I mean, it's not. There's different projects that come online or offline. We used to go to Japan for like typhoon stuff. Mm-hmm. We routinely operate in Canada, or at least southern Canada. Go to the Caribbean, different countries down there. So went to Aruba last year. We operate out of Barbados, St. Croix, which is U.S. Virgin Islands. Sometimes Bermuda, Ireland, for winter storms up there.
So what's been like your favorite project, if you have one?
I mean, the Alaska one I was just talking about is pretty far up there. I spent like 2 months in Hawaii this past winter, like February to April or whatever. I was gone for quite a bit, and I was in Hawaii on the jet, and we were doing a certain project. And as far as like a place to be, that was kind of up there.
You got paid to go on vacation.
Yeah, we were there, and I loved every second of it, and it was like a super cool place to be for sure. So I mean, that's up there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of memorable ones, but it's hard to top that. So it's been a good year, man. Hawaii for just being in an awesome location, and then Alaska for like the best flying ever.
Were you like filming volcanoes and stuff?
That was in our jet, and we were flying called Atmospheric Rivers. It's researching these wintertime storms that start in basically at the middle of the Pacific and work their way towards the northwest coast of the U.S.
Oh wow!
And they're called atmospheric rivers because if they develop a certain way that's basically a jet stream laden with tons and tons of water that can, change the amount of rainfall or have these huge rainfall events that hit the Northwest. And it's really important for, again, like drinking water, all the managers that are, managing the reservoirs, they're trying to keep the levels at full but not overflowing. So if they have better information on when and how much rain is going to hit them, they can, more accurately dial that in.
So these two projects directly correlate with one another then?
There's a lot of similar themes, yeah. So it's the same thing. We were dropping the drop zones out of the back of the jet, flying 40 to 45,000 and flying these patterns out there. This is a pattern based on an atmospheric river versus a hurricane, so looked a little different, but pretty similar. I mean, similar data that we were sending them for their models.
Interesting. So like by monitoring like the weather patterns in Hawaii, you can almost predict the water movement patterns over in Alaska.
Yeah, well, we were based in Hawaii. The jet has like this huge range, so we're collecting data more so over the middle of the Pacific, where there's not really any islands.
There's nothing.
There's no. It's a a data scarce region, so that's kind of like the big benefit of flying a jet out in the middle of the ocean is like the data you collect is it's probably the only way you're going to get that data. A satellite's not going to do it, or a boat's not going to do it. But a jet dropping these instruments is going to get a lot of it.
Interesting. You have the coolest job I've ever heard in my life. I'm so jealous of you right now. Like, man, I chose the wrong profession.
Oh, thanks, man. I've been with NOAA for 10 years, so it's been a long career so far. And it's not all glamour either. There's other aspects, there's always the desk job or the paperwork side of it. So there's a lot of it's been the best of times and it's been the worst of times.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have good things without bad things being towed along behind it. So
exactly.
I mean, based on everything you're telling me, I don't know how bad the paperwork is, but it definitely sounds worth it if I get to see whales and fly above hurricanes. I'm not sure I have the balls to fly into a hurricane. That is crazy sounding in every single way I can think of.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Nothing but props to you guys who fly into hurricanes. That's bonkers.
Yeah. The Air Force does it as well. They have the Air Force has the hurricane hunters. I mean, if you watch the Weather Channel, you can see them, especially as we get into hurricane season. They're interviewing people aboard the plane, and it's always the P3, the one that flies into it. They get the weather, and they get the media attention for good reason.
So do we know how bad this year is going to be for hurricanes?
It's supposed to be like higher than normal, more storms than average, so it's supposed to be pretty busy. Last season was quieter.
Yeah. Last 2 years was nothing.
Yeah, so I mean, same general precaution. Just try to be prepared,
So this year's going to be more intense. I should pack my stuff and just get the hell out of here.
Just move to like Kansas or Minnesota or something for the summer. Yeah, man. So we're just gearing up right now. It's May. June is start of hurricane season. It's pretty quiet at first, but just kind of like deep pause, deep breath, try to make sure that everything at home is set up, because once it starts, I mean, it could be storm after storm after storm, and you're just kind of hanging on. And
there's that one year where we had like 3 hurricanes back to back, and just right on the Atlantic.
Yeah, sometimes it's like during the peak of the season, it's just like a train of them. It's like one after the other, and we're watching it. We're flying with a meteorologist all the time, and it's always like, whoa, that one behind it looks pretty bad too. You think we're going to get tasked on that? And they're like, yeah, probably, if that track still holds. So, it's kind of long days, and come home, eat, sleep, wake up, go do it again. Yeah, so it's kind of right now just trying to take a deep breath, get ready, and be prepared for a potentially busy season.
Yep. Do you ever get nervous flying into hurricanes, or in your case, above them?
Above them? I mean, Not so much. I think it's moments where you're either relaxed or you're full focus. Either
you have a job to do.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like, all right, like this is the time to focus and be in the zone and make sure you're on your A game. And it's definitely moments like that, and sometimes it's for an extended period of time. And then there's other moments where you're out in the periphery, and it's smooth and there's a sunset and you're above the clouds and you're like, all right, this is pretty relaxing.
Let's get my phone real quick.
Yeah, take some photos and that kind of thing. But yeah, then other times it's just heightened focus and making sure you're staying aware of everything. All this information coming in.
Have you ever flown a P3 into a hurricane?
No, it's kind of a track for us. Is you start off on the light aircraft, and then as you progress, you can apply to one of the bigger aircraft. We call them the heavy aircraft. And the two different types we have right now are the P3 and the G4. And it's kind of a fork in the road, so you can't fly both of them, and you got to kind of choose one or the other. So I was in this fork in the road a year ago, maybe like a year plus ago, and I was like, which one do I really want? And it was such a hard decision. I would have loved to fly the P3. I mean, all the people that fly that are super professional and really good at what they do.
Oh, you have to be.
And it's a sweet plane, historic plane, Navy aircraft, and built like a tank. And then the jet is high speed, high altitude, kind of sexy. It's a jet, And so I was just kind of torn between the two, and eventually ended up applying for the jet. So sometimes I do wonder if I would have applied to the P2, I'd be flying through hurricanes right now. So I never actually was on that during one of the missions, but I wouldn't be opposed to it, I guess.
You're crazy.
Definitely go for it, yeah. I mean, there's that plane is impressive. And you can like go online and find videos of them flying through the hurricane and watch the turbulence that they're going through. And
that's the first thing I'm doing after this.
Yeah, there's a good one. There's a Smithsonian documentary too, where they kind of follow them through the season, and you can like see the before their briefing and during the flight and all that. And I talked to a lot of the people that fly that mission, and they're like, it's pretty extreme turbulence, and it can be pretty terrifying. You're kind of holding on to certain aspects, Yeah.
I remember flying through turbulence once. Well, not flying, sitting on a jumbo, flying through turbulence, and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
Well, it probably was pretty bad. I mean, honestly, sometimes on commercial flights you can find the severe turbulence too.
Yeah, because I was flying over to Hong Kong, and I'm just like thinking like I'm above the Pacific Ocean right now. I just got finished watching Castaway with Tom Hanks, which is probably the worst movie to watch before you hop onto an airplane.
Yeah. Now you're running scenarios. You're like, where's Wilson? Do I have the FedEx packages?
I need a volleyball. Where's my volleyball?
I need my volleyball. I need a buddy. That's the only way I'm going to stay sane,
Do I know how to make fire? Like crap. It's at that moment when you realize just how helpless you are.
Yeah.
Like, if I got if I got dropped onto like the middle of an island in the middle of nowhere, how long will I survive? And I had that I had those thoughts at that moment.
You had a moment. You
yeah.
You were thinking about.
Oh yeah, I was like 18, 19 years old at that time. I'm just like, okay, if it's my time to go. It's my time to go.
You're like, I got this.
But I mean, but at this point, I think it speaks volumes to like the level of engineering that you feel confident that you could take this P2 into a hurricane, and that they've never had a problem, a catastrophic problem. So I think that's just marvelous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm stealing this from a Navy admiral I saw. He did a commencement speech for some college, but he was saying you got to have confidence in your equipment, you have to have confidence in your team, and you have to have confidence in yourself.
Yes.
And it's really cool to keep that in mind. And our normal pre-flight preparations is is geared towards all of that. You're assessing the aircraft, making sure it's airworthy to go out there. You're
running through all the checklists.
You're running through the checklist, making sure we brief everything with our team, the weather, how everybody's doing, what our game plan is. So you build confidence in your team, and then the confidence in yourself just comes from, training and studying and flying and all the years of doing it.
That's so wicked, man. Did you know you were gonna do this as a little kid?
No. So yeah, I've been with NOAA for 10 years, and as a kid, I was always into the water. Like fishing, swimming, snorkeling, scuba diving.
That Florida life.
Yeah, basically. And we always lived near the coast, and I just like being on the water. So that's how I initially got into NOAA. I was working with an aquatic ecology group with a university, and we were out there doing kind of the same thing, collecting data, but different project, different mission.
Just not from the air.
Not from the air, just from a small, tiny John boat and in these lakes in Wisconsin and stuff. And then I found out about NOAA, and I was like, dang, they have ships, because we also have ships that do a similar mission, same thing, collect data. And I found out about the ships, and I was like, dang, I'd love to go to sea, like be a mariner and be a watchstander and drive these ships. So that's what initially got me in NOAA. I was like, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll go sign up and go to sea for 2 years and see what that's like. And so that's what I did. I was on a ship out of Charleston, and we were doing all sorts of different operations, small boat work, remote underwater vehicle, like these little remote control submarines, dragging nets, different types of nets for big fish or even tiny fish, like collecting sediment. Basically a science research platform. I did that for 2 years. And we had some pilots that came aboard because they're testing these UAS or drones that they were going to try and use for research. So started talking to the pilots, and I was like, that sounds pretty cool too. Sounds pretty awesome. I think I'm going to try and go for that. So I applied and convinced them to send me to flight school, and then I had to become an aviator and leave the mariner side behind type deal.
Any regrets?
No regrets, but yeah, being out to sea is kind of cool. There's definitely some moments out there too where you're like, man, we're out in the middle of nowhere, like, middle of the night, you're on watch, and you like look outside and like,
stars must be amazing because without the light pollution.
Yeah, stars are incredible, and the swell is just kind of, no, you're in the environment, you're like in it, and it's such humans have been seafaring people for thousands of years, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, we only just discovered the air 120 years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of a new thing. So, but yeah, I never really thought about flying as a kid. I was like, kind of came around in my mid-20s. I was like, that sounds pretty cool. I should probably do that.
Fly through a hurricane? Where do I sign up?
Yeah, fly a plane for science? Yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, I'm thankful that it happened, and that I went to Vero Beach for flight school, and it all kind of happened fast from there. But it's been a ride, and I'm super grateful, and always learning something.
So what's next now that you're a G4? So what's next? What comes after that?
Well, we're supposed to get a new high altitude jet, the G550. That's coming online 2023, I think, or 2024. So that would be like the next aircraft to look forward to. Also, there's a big pilot shortage. I'm not sure if you've kept dibs on that or heard about it in the news, but basically everybody's hiring pilots right now. So that's always tempting to see these other jobs or see the people you used to work with go and fly for other outfits. So it's always kind of a curious thing, like, oh, maybe I should go for that, or should I stay? So it's another fork in the road. Right now I've got 10 years in, and if I stayed, I would probably do another few years of flying full time, and then have to switch to a different type of assignment, which would be more office work, I guess.
Gotcha.
Less flying.
Oh, that's not fun.
Less exciting.
Stay with the airplanes.
That's my goal. My goal, either way, is to just keep flying. You know.
That is so cool. What do you do for a living? I fly.
Fly planes.
I fly. I monitor whales and hurricanes for science. Wow. No, I'm actually gonna. Man, I'm not gonna lie. You got the gears in my head turning like, huh? I wonder if I have what it takes to do this.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways to get into it. So,
yeah,
go check out the local flight school here and do a couple hours. You know.
Yeah, I think like most guys as a kid have played with the idea of being a pilot. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. You'll never forget the first time you take off, and you're like, wow, it's like at the controls, and you're flying, and even now I've been flying for 8 years.
Still blows your mind.
Sometimes I'm like, wow, like we're like 6 miles above the earth. Like, what are we doing up here?
We don't have wings.
We don't have wings.
We're not birds.
Yeah, these wings are just metal. They're not even feathers.
There's nothing between me and that ground right now.
Yeah, sometimes you're like, what is it? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
It is. I think I'll stick with skydiving though.
Skydiving.
Yes. I'll jump out of the planes that you fly.
I've heard that people get really into that too.
It's very addicting because I don't know if you're an adrenaline junkie, but like it's the most adrenaline-inducing thing I've ever done in my life. There's nothing that even comes close.
Dang.
Yes. Maybe getting to a sparring session with Bobby or Ronnie. But yeah.
Close second.
Those are close seconds.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
All right, man. So, what's next? What's next for Ricky?
What's next for me? Like now or future?
Or just the future.
Future.
I know we kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, we touched on it a bit. I think right now I want to fly one more season and then take it from there. But like I said, there's a kind of a fork in the road. I got to make a decision soon whether to stay with NOAA or find a different flying gig. But I think flying will be in there no matter what. It's kind of cool to find something where you're passionate about it and you enjoy it all the time. And every time I fly, I'm learning, teaching, absorbing everything. And it's just kind of cool. I know I will keep at it and stick with it,
Yeah. No, this has been very, very educational for me, and I hope the viewers like it as well. Like, this was very different from anything I've ever heard about.
No, I appreciate you reaching out and like asking me to do this, because I would have never.
It's interesting because like when you talk to someone and they have like that twinkle in their eye that lights up when they bring up a subject. Like something I learned from like some of my sales mentors is that every introvert has a topic that turns them into an extrovert. And when you come across that topic, like you see like that sparkle go in their eyes and just light up. Like that's what I saw in you when you talked about I'm about to go to Alaska and do some flights that are. And I saw that in you. I'm like, okay,
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, we gotta talk about this.
That's super cool. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and it's so rare to find people who have that passion about anything in their lives, because there's just a lot of people who just kind of just go through life like, why do you have a job? Because it pays the bills. I'm like, well, you gonna do anything else? Not really. This I'm gonna live for the next 34 years of my life. I'm like, that's your choice, but
Yeah.
I like finding people who find a passion.
It's cool to find people who have found it too and found that spark, whether it's their job or their hobby or something they do on the weekends. It's like really cool to see that. Like you said, it's a spark, and it's contagious too. Like, oh wow.
Hell yeah. No. I'm feeding off of this energy right now. But
yeah.
I'm gonna go home and edit the shit out of this video. All right, man. And thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Anything else you want to say before we close out?
Just if you want to check it out, NOAA Hurricane Hunters, NOAA Aircraft Operations Center, and I am a part of the NOAA Commissioned Officer Corps. So those are all 3 different things you could Google and find out more about us. But it's been an amazing career, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. And I'm just happy to be here and happy to have had these experiences. And thanks for having me again, man.
Oh man, we gotta Next time you do a dope trip, we gotta do a follow up.
Follow up would be great.
Absolutely, man. All right, thank you, brother.
Thanks.
All right. And cut.
Cut.
All right. Well, that was way cooler than anything I had in mind.
That was cool, man. I like how